not fail, and we need to hold on to that. So let's get started today. I'm going to pray us out, and then we'll get moving. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to all these lovely women. Lord, I am just humbled that I even get to stand up here. Lord, I thank you for the journey that I've been on. It has been a long one, and it has not always been easy, but has led me to this place where I can come, I can stand strong, I can share what you've shown me, what you've taught me, and Jesus, I just hope that that's what these ladies need to hear today. Speak through me, allow me to say what they need to hear, be present with them, whisper to them, let them know that you are here with us, and you are bringing us to your feet. You are bringing us to a place where we are ready to learn and grow with you today. We thank you and we praise all this in your name. Amen. Hi, guys. Hi. Hi, I'm Stacey. Nice to meet you. Okay, I have 2 copies just in case something were to go wrong up here. I've secured my bases. Okay. Hi. Okay, I'm Stacey. Hi. I'm going to stop saying hi now. Welcome to Flourish Day 2. Yay! We're so excited to be here. I am so excited. This is the long, full day of inspiration and amazing time, and I just can't wait to see what God does here today. Last night, Ashley brought it before she even knew she was going to bring it, and she did amazing, and so I'm just excited to build on that today as we kind of move forward. So welcome. If you don't know me, like I've said several times, hi, my name is Stacey. I am the preschool pastor here at Cedar Point. So on the north side of this building, they're all the little ones. They are my babies. And I get to love on them, and that is what I do here at Cedar Point. My husband and my family and I have been attending Cedar Point for about 6 years, which is crazy because I don't think we've stayed put for that long. Like, that's the longest we've stayed put in our life. We've been attending here for about 6 years, and I have been on staff for about 4. When I started on staff, I was part-time, largely because I had a little 3-year-old sidekick in tow. So my little one was still young and not in school yet, so he hung out with me a lot. But now he grew up, and so he's in school, and now I'm working all the time. So that's kind of how I've grown into my role here, but you should know that I am not from here. I grew up in Ohio. O-H. There it is. I knew Haley had me. Anyway, I grew up in Ohio. I'm not from here. I met my husband, Nick, and then we moved around all over the place. I have lived in 6 different states, and then we landed here in Oklahoma. And this is our final destination. He's back there. He hears me. This is our final destination. I'm not going anywhere. So anyway, we've been married about 13 years. New Year's Eve, it'll be 14 years. So that's kind of crazy. We like a party, so we did it on New Year's Eve. And then we have 2 just handsome, I want to say beautiful, and they would yell at me, but handsome little elementary-aged boys. Can you guys put up the picture of my cute family? They're so cute. They're my favorite people. They're somewhere in there, but they'll come. Don't worry. So they're my family. I have 2 boys. So one is in 5th grade. That's Killian. Killian's the oldest. He's in 5th. There he is. Look how cute he is. This is like a year ago, too. He's just as cute now. The teeth have all changed, and they've all grown a little bit, but this is them. So Killian is in 5th grade. He loves baseball. He loves being creative. He's hilarious. And he's a new trumpet player, so you can pray for our ears for that. He practices all the time. He just loves it. And then the little one, who's not so little, is Nolan. He is 7. He also loves, like, all things boy. He loves sports. He loves running around like crazy. He is wake up, full of energy, people person, like all of that. But he's also like a little mama's boy. So he just always comes back home and gives me a hug, and I love it. And I told him I was going to tell y'all he was my baby, and he said, please don't say that. But he is, so too bad. And he's not here. He's in school. So anyway. Okay, so as you can imagine, I have 2 kids. I have a husband. I actually have 3 dogs. I have 2 Labrador retrievers who are awesome. I do not have a picture of them. And then I have a little beagle, Lily, who's been with me. We started the family, me and Lily. She's been with me for about 17 years now. So she's close to meeting Jesus, but she has had a great life, okay? Honestly, she really has. Anyway, so that's, as you can imagine, we've got a lot of things going on. Our life is very full, very, very busy. And we love every minute. Well, not every minute. We love most of the minutes of it, right? But there was a season of my life where I just wasn't sure that I would live in any of the spaces I live in right now. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I did not think that I would be a wife, that I would be a mom, that I would step foot back in a church, let alone be up here, heaven forbid, that I would be working, that I would have joy in my days. And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. But before we do that, I'm going to need to pray a little bit. So let's just go ahead and pray over what we're about to get into. Lord, I just come to you this morning, and I ask you to steady my story, focus my heart, let everyone get what they need to get from my story, whatever it is you want them to hear, Lord. I ask that I speak it clearly. I ask that you bless this. I ask that we move forward in your name. Amen. Okay, so I have to set the scene for you a little bit. I was born and raised in Ohio. I told you that. I lived in a small city, very similar to Claremore. I like to say that it was just colder and snowier, so this is better. But it's very similar, small town vibes. I have two amazing parents. My mom was a teacher for a really long time. Now she's on the school board. And my dad was in sales forever. They're both retired now, so they come and visit their grandkids all the time. They still live in Ohio. We can try and talk them into coming down here. And then I have a brother who's 3 years younger than me. He has a beautiful wife. We have a great relationship. They live in Charleston, South Carolina. We can also try and talk them into moving here. You're not going to get them. I was raised in the church. I was raised in a Lutheran church, and so we went on Sundays. I did both Sunday school and then church almost every Sunday. And the thing that I loved about church was that I got to see a lot of my family there. So I got to see my cousins and my grandparents and my aunts and uncles. I had a bunch of friends that were in my grade that went to church too. So like our Sunday school class was just friends. So I ended up building this foundation of faith that not only incorporated Jesus, but also people and experiences that I truly loved. And so that worked for me. And I was like, okay, I've got it. And then I went to college a few hours from home, just north in Cleveland. I love Cleveland. I made amazing friends. I had fun. I got a degree in marketing that I'm clearly using so well right now. Thanks, Mom and Dad. And then when I graduated, I got an offer my first job was to travel for a chemical company and essentially like train our salespeople out in the field. And it was really cool because at 21, 22-ish, I was just like off. 4 days a week, I would be like in Miami or in California. And in the winter, I would go take a vacation, instead of sitting in dreary Cleveland, Ohio. So it was great. It was a great job. And then it allowed me to visit some of my friends who had kind of scattered throughout the world, the country, I guess, not the world. So one of my best friends from high school ended up moving to Texas to live with her husband. And we had kind of, not necessarily lost touch, but we didn't go to college together, so we weren't super close. But when I realized that I could travel to where they were, I thought, I'll just come stay with you guys for the weekend and, hang out. So she was excited. We made the plans. And I ended up staying the weekend at their house. And so that Friday, they had planned a dinner, and it was like their friends that are couples were coming over, right? Because they had like couple friends because they were married. So they were like, hey, we have a bunch of friends coming over. We're going to have dinner and hang out. And I was like, okay, sounds great. Very low key. And then last minute, through work, an extra person got invited, and his name was Mike. Okay, so Mike walked in, and I found out like last minute, and my introduction was really like, he's the only other single person here. So like, have fun. And I just remember thinking like, okay, please don't be a weirdo. Like, I don't even know you. But because God works in amazing ways, it turns out he was from Cleveland. So we actually knew a lot of the same people. We called some of them that night and freaked them out because they had no idea why we were in the same place. But it was great. We just really clicked. We talked about all the things. We talked about our families, and we talked about what we wanted to do. He was going to finish what he was doing and then move back to Ohio. That was the plan. So we really clicked. And then the rest of the weekend, we kept trying to kind of find ways to hang out. So we would swindle ways to hang out again. And then he ended up taking me to the airport on Sunday when I left. And it was just a really easy connection. When you meet someone, friend or otherwise, and it's just an easy connection. And you're talking right away, and you're like, oh, I recognize you, even though we've never really met. That's how it was with Mike. except he was a boy, and I am a girl. And so, we were more than friends. Um, so after that, we were stuck. We talked all the time. We texted, we talked on the phone. He would come back to see his family in Cleveland, and I would just pick him up from the airport and go with him. His family lived 20 minutes from where I was living at the time. And so we would just do all the things together. When he'd come back, I would travel there because I could travel for my job. He met my family, and 6 months later, we were engaged. I know it. Yes, that is quick. But here's the thing. Mike was in the Army, and he was scheduled to deploy at the end of that year. So that was in 2007. And so when we got engaged, a ton of our military friends were like, oh, no worries. You can get married before they leave. You can go to the courthouse and get married. You can plan a small wedding and get married in a couple months before they leave. And we kind of sat down and talked about it. And there's a lot of reasons to do that. In the military, you get paid more if you're married, and especially if you're deployed and married. And you get benefits. If we were married, I would have had benefits the whole time he was gone. Otherwise, I don't. So there are a lot of reasons people do that. But when we sat down and talked about it, I just remember saying to him, I'm marrying you because I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I don't want to marry you, in case of other stuff, you know? And so he was like, all right, whatever you feel like. So we set off to plan our wedding for 15 months. So the deployments at that time were 15 months, which is a very long time. So I was like, okay, I will focus on planning the wedding. You go do your thing, and then we'll live our life after this. So Mike deployed in October of 2007. I think we have a picture of him too. There he is in front of his Bradley. So that's his Bradley. He, I was gonna explain the name of this, but it probably doesn't matter. I don't know if you can see it. It says Gator Hater up there. So Mike was a big Ohio State fan. And and that during this, I know this was a long time ago, but during this time, that one of the national championships was the Florida Gators and Ohio State Buckeyes. So he was very excited that he had to name his Bradley something that started with a G, and he created Gator Hater. And he was very proud of it. This is one of his favorite pictures of him. But anyway, so he was in Iraq. We communicated through email, through letters, some sparse phone calls, that kind of thing. He came back in July of 2008 for a 2-week R&R. So when they were doing 15-month deployments, they'd come back for a little bit just to kind of take a break. And so he came back in July. It was so fun. He actually got back on July 4th, which was really a fun day to come back. And then he left at the end of July. And he was really torn because he wanted to go back because he was missing his guys. He didn't know what was going on over there, and that was really hard for him. But it was also just hard to leave again. So he went back in July, and then 2 months later, on September 24th of 2008, he was killed in action by a suicide bomber in Iraq. He was 25, and I had just turned 24. So let me walk you through my side of this. That morning, or I suppose the next morning, I got up to get ready for work. I ran to my laundry room to get some clothes out of the dryer, came back to my bedroom, and I had 3 missed calls on my phone from my parents. That's never something you want to see shortly after 6 a.m. So I picked up the phone, I called them back. I remember talking to my dad, who I could tell was upset, and all I remember him saying is, "Stacey, he's gone." And I was confused. But I also still had both grandparents at that time, and so my head just logically thought that's probably what's going on. I do remember hearing both of my parents intermittently telling me they were on their way. They lived about 2 hours from me. And so I thought, okay. The next phone call I got was from Mike's parents, specifically his dad. His dad is 6'2", 250, a big dude. He was the chief of police at the time, he's a good guy. Anyway, he called me and I could tell he was upset. And he said, "Stacey, are you alone?" Now it's 6:15 in the morning and I live alone. So I was yeah, I thought that was such a weird thing for him to say. And he said, "Okay, 2 men in uniform are headed to your house. We will come there too." No one really explained what happened, or if they did, I do not remember that. About 10 minutes later, a car drove up to my condo, and I stood on the balcony. So I was on a second-story balcony, and the car drove up. They parked, got out, came up the flight of stairs in full uniform to my porch, and asked if I was fiance of Captain Michael J. Metters? And I said, yes. And I remember saying, you're looking for me. And they said something like, we regret to inform you that he was killed in action last night in Iraq. Now, I don't remember hearing them say that, but I know that's what they're supposed to say. I remember saying, do you want to come in my house and tell me that? So we did. We went inside. I was in complete shock, as you can tell. I was offering these sweet Army officers glasses of water and telling them about my cat, which makes no sense. They were trying to walk me through what happened in very basic terms, honestly, none of which they didn't probably know the details anyway, but I remember talking about the most random things with them because in my head I kept thinking that when my parents got there or when Mike's parents got there, they would straighten everything out. Like, this wasn't what's happening. So everyone got there, and there was no straightening out. We were all just living our nightmare. So I know that this is a pretty heavy story, but I also know that all of us have been through some sort of loss of some kind. Your loss might not look like mine. It probably doesn't. That's good. But we've all experienced some sort of devastating, surprising, horrible, gut-wrenching loss. And that loss is really a pivotal point for us. We can cascade into a lot of different places. It can lead us to a deeper faith. It can lead us to turn to God and to trust in him. It can lead us the other way. It can lead us to be mad, to turn away, to turn our back on God even. So this is where we're going to begin navigating our loss. Our first point today is that we can expect a refining fire. It's guaranteed that in our lives, we will experience difficult things. We will experience loss. Loss comes with heartache, death, grief, suffering, pain, all of that. And we can expect it. And when we do expect it, we begin to live differently because we can deepen our faith. A surface level faith doesn't stand up to that. And this is what I learned. So we're going to look at John 16, verse 33. And Jesus says, I have told you all of this so that you will have peace in me. Here on earth you will have many trials and sorrows, but take heart because I have overcome the world. So the context here is Jesus is speaking to his disciples in the upper room, right? And so this is before his crucifixion, before his arrest, and he's telling them, he says in the verse, I have told you all of this. He just told them about all the things they're going to face. He told them about how there's going to be grief and persecution, and it's going to be really hard. He also told them that the Holy Spirit would come and guide and comfort them. So he had told them all this, and then he said, I have told you all of this so that you will have peace in me. He basically told them, your world's about to collapse. They were about to see him arrested, killed, and for everything that they knew, seemingly defeated, right? He said, take heart because I have overcome the world. I want to look at this. He speaks this in past tense, and he is still alive. He said, I have overcome the world, but he is sitting there with them. So I looked this up because that was interesting to me. And in scripture, sometimes when something is so certain in God's plan that it just is, it's spoken of as already accomplished always. And that's what Jesus is speaking like here. He's declaring an absolute certainty. He's declaring certain victory. This is before he was on the cross, before he rose from the dead, before any of that. He was declaring absolute victory. So he's showing his disciples that even though the future is tough, your world is about to collapse. You think it's all over. That's where I was. It was all over. They're entering into his guaranteed victory, not fighting for their own victory. He has the victory. He's already promised it. So for me, my faith was just built on a very shallow understanding of what we have to learn. I thought that when I did a good job, then I earned good, and if I did good enough things, then I could avoid the bad things, and I did not know. And so at this point, then a really big fire came, and it burned everything to the ground. I had nothing. my world collapsed. I was lost. Nothing made sense. And I questioned everything, including my faith, because I didn't know to expect the fire. I didn't know this verse. I didn't know that Jesus said, listen, sometimes it's going to suck, but I'm here. I'm here, and I have already claimed victory. I didn't know that. And so if we go back to that verse and look, he also talks about peace, which I remember when Mike was first killed and we finally started operating again, thinking the only thing I wanted were moments of peace. I don't know if that resonates with you, but I didn't want to be happy again. I didn't want to be joyful again. I didn't want to be laughing all the time. I just wanted moments of peace. And so this part speaks so much to me because he says, I've told you all this so that you will have peace in me. Not peace in your performance, not peace in the world and things that are going on in the world. Peace in him, in the guaranteed victory he has already laid out. That's where we can go to find our peace. So in his own words, Jesus told us, here on earth you will have many trials and sorrows. The foretelling, the knowing that that's going to happen doesn't make it easier. It doesn't make it easier when it does, but it gives you something to hold on to. This morning we sang about a firm foundation, and I couldn't help but think of this point of that firm foundation is what you can hold on to. You can plant your feet in that, you can hold on tight, and you can bear the craziness that happens around you. It's a guaranteed victory that Jesus told us about, and he's promised to us. But I had nothing to hold on to because I didn't have that faith. I had a false sense of faith, and so for me, I chose that path that turned away. I was so mad, I didn't even want to see God. I didn't want to see anything. I didn't understand. I hadn't learned to expect the refining fire. Okay, so next we're going to move into the next few weeks and months of processing kind of what happened with Mike's family. We figured it out as we went. My parents were amazing. They canceled all the wedding plans and the honeymoon plans. They were on phones with vendors and florists and airlines. I did none of that. I don't even know how that happened, except that I know they did it. I helped Mike's parents and his sister plan a funeral. So instead of looking for lots for land for our house, we were looking at cemetery plots. And I remember the moment we picked one, it looks out over this little river. I remember Mike's sweet mom saying, oh, it's just the best one because it's looking out over a river. And I was so mad. I was like, it's the best one? It's the best cemetery plot? Great. Fantastic. I was so mad. I shifted from picking flowers for my bouquet and my girls' bouquets to picking flower arrangements that would be beside his casket. His body was back about 2 weeks later. We hosted several visitations and a funeral. And then we laid Mike to rest in the cemetery. And by that time, I was a literal shell of myself. I was not eating. I was not hungry. I was not talking. If you know me, that's weird. I had the hardest time sleeping. All I wanted to do was sleep. It was the only time I felt any comfort, but it was fleeting at best. I had trouble even doing that. But when I was asleep, I couldn't remember what was happening. And then I'd wake up and we'd start all over again. The days lasted forever. Minutes felt like hours, and I had no real conceivable idea of how I was going to continue to live in this world without my best friend in it. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. But let's get to where the healing happens. So I was stubborn. I held on really, really tightly in that season to what I wanted it to look like, what I had expected, how unfair it was that I had lost Mike, that we all had lost Mike. I was so mad that is all I saw. I could not see what God was doing, but God knew the whole time. So he surrounded me with people. He surrounded me with people so that I would see that he was still there. So at this point in my journey, I was raised in the church. I kind of loved our faith, and I was so mad. And so I turned my back. I would not go to church. I would not talk about God I don't think that I could ever get to the place of literally not believing that there was a God, but outside of that, I questioned everything. Because for me, it didn't make sense. But he surrounded me with people. My parents were rocks that I stood on for those first 6 months. They took care of everything, including me. And Mike's family is amazing. They're an amazing family, and they welcomed me right beside them to kind of hold on to them so I could scrape at pieces of him still. And when I look back and see all of those people that he placed in my life, I know that it was incredibly intentional because he knew how I was feeling. He knew I wasn't coming back right now. But he did know he could show up in other people. I turned my back on him because I didn't understand, but guys, healing happens in community. And that's our second point. Healing happens in community. Our verse here is going to be in Matthew. It's Matthew 26, and it starts at verse 36. So here, we're probably all very familiar with this verse, but it's one that I absolutely love. And it says, "Then Jesus went with them to the olive grove called Gethsemane, and he said, 'Sit here while I go over there to pray.' He took Peter and Zebedee's 2 sons, James and John, and became anguished and distressed. He told them, 'My soul is crushed with grief to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me.'" What I want us to notice about this verse, though I'm sure we've talked through this story a lot, is that Jesus did not go alone. He brought people with him into the olive grove. He brought more people with him as he went deeper. He asked them to stay. He knows, I believe this is an example. I believe that Jesus is setting an example for us on how to deal with loss, on how to deal with a devastating situation. He didn't try to do it alone. He took people with them. He brought them in and talked about his anguish, his distress. He brought them into community and he said, "Hey, I'm really having a hard time right now. Please stay with me here. I can't do it. Stay and keep watch. I need you." So many times we try to do this alone, and that was never the point. If we go back to the verse, it says he took James and John with him, and he told them in his own words, "My soul is crushed with grief to the point of death." I want to pause here because if you've ever felt a devastating loss like that, that phrase will hit you. When I read that the Lord has felt crushed with grief to the point of death, I knew he understood me. Because that's how I felt. I felt crushed to the point of death. There was nothing left. And he felt that too. And then he said to his friends, "Please just stay here. Stay here and keep watch with me. I can't do it alone. He couldn't do it alone, and we can't do it alone." Okay? God surrounded me with people, and I want to give you a short example of one of my real life friends who stayed with me during this time. So my friend Tori is married to one of Mike's really good friends, Zach. And so they would hang out. They got married before we were going to, and so we would hang out in couples. So I knew them really well, and Tori and I just clicked. And so when Mike was killed, Tori and Zach became this huge source of support for me. They were amazing. And on the 1-year anniversary of Mike's death, I really struggled a lot. So Mike was killed in the evening of the 24th, and I didn't find out until the 25th in the morning. And so that whole time frame for me was kind of mind-boggling. I was having trouble reconciling what I was doing with what he was doing, and it was just very hard with me. So 1 year later, I'm walking through that time frame, and it's very messy, and I was having a really hard time. And so my friend Tori came over and just stayed with me that night. She came to my condo, and I remember her being with me. And so I remember this sort of in snapshot style, where I did not sleep that night, but she wrote it out with me. So I can remember at one point I was on my bathroom floor crying, and she sat right outside the bathroom door. I can remember another point where I was sitting in a different corner of my room, on the floor, crying, and she sat beside me just crying too. I can remember a point where I tried to lay in the bed, and so she laid in the guest room and probably slept a little bit. There were times she sat with me and cried with me. There were times she sat with me and didn't. There were times she let me be, but she was still there. She stayed and she kept watch because I could not. I could not do it. And I believe the Lord modeled this for us. So you may need that reminder that healing happens in community. It happens when we stay. I also just want to point out, guys, that if Jesus can't do it alone, stop trying to. Jesus didn't do it alone. Not only did he set an example, but the literal Lord chose not to do this alone. So we can't either. Stop trying to. Stop trying to be strong and muddle through. Stop keeping it in, covering it up. We try so hard to be strong, and we dig in our heels and we're like, yeah, no, we've got this. You don't have to do it by yourself. You were never meant to. That's not the example he set. What it can take is a little bit of lifting our heads, especially when we're in the valley, lifting our heads and looking around, because he is putting people right beside you. He's giving you a community to love and support you, and you don't have to do this alone. He asked his friends to stay, and it is expected that you also would ask your friends to stay, because healing happens in community. So we've talked about, knowing that there's going to be a fire, expecting that fire, not living in fear, but just knowing that there will be difficult times and that there's a guaranteed victory that we can find peace in. We've also talked about how Jesus set the example for us, that healing happens in community. And now I want to talk about how in times like this, we question the nature of Jesus. We question the reality of Jesus. And we try, or I did, to turn away and push him out. It's a pivotal point like that, and we can get stuck there. And so it's something I want to talk about. You can get stuck with your back to God because of how difficult loss can be. I told you guys that's what I did. I turned around. I wouldn't go. I wouldn't talk to him. I was so mad. I remember actually having a friend who told me, you can be mad at God. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, scream at him, yell at him, he can handle it. And so I can remember in the shower, if you ever need to have a breakdown, shower's the place to do it. Amen? Okay. So I can remember in the shower, just losing my mind, so mad, and just screaming at God until the water ran cold. That's how long of a shower it was. And then I just got out, and I just remember her saying, he's fine. He's got you. So, side note, do that. Okay, anyway, where that came from. Okay, but anyway, so for me, I turned my back to God. And the healing process was very long, and I'm going to say kind of ugly, because I was really stubborn about it. But I was not only grieving the loss of Mike, grieving the loss of my entire future from what I had pictured, but I was also healing from this devastating experience. Mostly for me now, I can see that I was learning a lot. And for some reason, y'all, when we need to learn it and take it in, it gets real hard, right? It just gets real hard. But we learn it. So that's what I was doing as well. I was learning that he was still there. I pushed him way over here, and I stood way over here, and he stayed there. He stayed right there. And he put people in between us that would get me a little bit closer and a little bit closer. He didn't push anything. My husband is one of those people, my beautiful husband in the back. He is one of those people. He just got in here and was like, no, I get what you're saying, but Jesus loves you. And I was like, no. And he's like, no, I get what you're saying. The world sucks, but Jesus loves you. So I had that learning to do. Okay, so the next point I want to go to, I've got a couple verses. The first verse, I'm sure you guys have heard this story, and I know that because I teach it in preschool. You guys remember when in Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego get thrown into the fire? Okay, so in Daniel 3, verse 16, it says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty, but even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up. Whew, I want faith like that. So then in the story, the guards tie them up and throw them in the furnace. Okay, and then at verse 23 it says, but suddenly Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them in the furnace? Yes, your majesty, we certainly did, they replied. Look, Nebuchadnezzar shouted, I see 4 men, unbound, walking around in a fire unharmed, and the 4th looks like a god. Gosh, I just love this. It's such a good picture of everything we're talking about. You're not alone in a literal fire, okay? You're not alone in the fire or outside the fire. These men were unbound. There was a whole extra person there. Okay, so the point 3 is just that God is still there. God was with me the whole time. He put so many moments of mercy and grace in front of me that I can see now that I could not see then. He held me as close to him as I'd let him. And then, like I said, he put people in between. He knew that he could heal, that I could heal in community, and eventually they'd lead me back. He knew how deeply I was hurt, and he waited patiently enough for me to turn back around. The last verse we're going to look at is in John, and it's John 11, verse 33. So in John, when Jesus gets word that Lazarus is sick, I know you all are familiar with this as well. He gets word that Lazarus is sick, but he doesn't make it back in time to heal him, right? And Mary and Martha are, grief-stricken because Lazarus has died. So the verse says, when Jesus saw her weeping and saw the other people wailing with her, a deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. Then Jesus wept. In this story, I want us to notice how things unfold. He shows up. Jesus shows up. He shows deep anger at the death that happened. Death was never supposed to be part of the story. Death is not from God. It is from the devil. And he is angry in this moment about it. He is troubled by this loss. Martha met him there when he got there, and she said, Lord, if only you had been here. If only you had been here, you could have kept this from happening. It's such a human response, right? Like, I just need to blame someone. How dare you not come back? Remember the I have overcome. Jesus can speak about things that are coming as if they've already happened. And in this story, he knew what was going to happen. He knew that he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. He knew exactly what was going to happen. But being fully human, he grieved. He sat in that grief with Mary and Martha and all of the other people there. He felt the weight of it. The anger welled up within him. He was deeply troubled, and he wept. For me, in my healing, it felt like letting Jesus in would erase the grief. And that is not something I wanted, because it meant that somehow we'd erase Mike. It was like a big dry erase board that has all of Mike's life on it, including me, and it would just take a big eraser and erase the whole thing. That somehow letting Jesus in to heal from that would discredit who he was in the world, who he was to me. But none of that is true. In fact, actually, Mike was more important to God than he ever was to me. If we look at this verse, when he saw her weeping and saw the other people wailing with her, a deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. Then Jesus wept. He wept for Lazarus. He wept for Mike. He weeps with you. He saw that pain and it angered him. He felt that pain and it angered him. He wept over the loss of a friend. Even though he knew he was about to raise Lazarus from the dead, he honored that grief. He didn't skip the pain. He sat in it with them. He does that with us. He doesn't fix it right away. He didn't come in and say, like, shush, Martha and Mary, how dare you? Like, I'm just going to raise him from the dead. Knock it off. He sat in it. He was angry. He cried with them. Our pain brings him pain. And honor, he brings honor to that grief when you bring him in. Jesus wasn't emotionally distant in this story, and he wasn't immediately fixing the situation. He's entering into it, and he's doing that with you as well. So next, we're going to move into, I'm going to invite the prayer team up. I can hear the music. I'm going to invite the prayer team up. We're going to move into a moment of kind of reflection. So I have told you my story. I know your story is not the same. But I want you to take what I've shared and reflect on your own story. If you've experienced a loss, I want you to take time now and process through that. Think about it. Maybe it's a fresh season for you. I know there are several of you that are in a fresh season of grief, and my heart aches for you because I've been there. Maybe it's brand new, and you don't know what to do with it. You don't know which way to turn. You don't even know how to bear it. Maybe it's something you've been holding on to privately. You've locked it deep in your heart. Maybe you've been so angry at God that you won't even look at him. But here's the truth. Jesus promised us that trouble will come. The fire is guaranteed, but the fire doesn't have to destroy you. It can refine you. That's what we're learning about this weekend. And bringing Jesus into it doesn't erase what happened. It honors your experience. It allows you to heal, and it allows him to bring purpose to your pain. Some of you have been trying to carry this loss alone. You've been covering it up. You've been strong-arming it yourself. And when you get home at night, then you can lose it. You're trying to hold yourself together, and you are refusing to let anyone in. I understand. I've been there. Maybe you're realizing it's not working anymore, because it won't work forever. God never meant for you to walk alone in this journey. You were created for community. He's given people to you with a holy purpose to walk alongside you. They are there to help carry that weight and to hold you when you can't stand on your own. Some of you are still so angry from your loss that you won't even look at God. The deep anger that burns inside of you, it's powerful. And it will keep you stuck right where you are. And Satan loves it. He loves that you're stuck there. You have to decide to let that go. Not let the experience go, not erase a single thing. But you need to let the anger go. It's powerful. Jesus, in his humanness, felt every bit of the anger that you feel. We've read about it today. He's right there with you. He sees you. He hears you. He's not distant. He weeps with you. He's waiting with open arms to welcome you back. It doesn't make it go away, but it does make it better. He wants to heal the crushed parts of your soul. So right now, as we enter into this time of worship and reflection, I want you to take that next step in healing from whatever loss you're thinking through. He's asking you to turn around. He's asking you to come back over and to give him a big hug. He wants to embrace you. He wants to hold you. He wants to protect you. But he can't do it if you don't turn around. You're not forgotten. You're not overlooked. You are seen and you are valued. You are cared for so deeply. You are redeemed by his name and restored by his love. And when you take that step towards him, you will find that he is right beside you. So I want us to take some time now. The prayer team is up here if that's something you want to process. And we'll worship and look through that.